Liquidation is an excellent tool to restructure your business and get rid of debt. A lot of people think that liquidation brings the world to an end and the world is crashing down on you. That is just not true. Liquidation is just one of the steps that a business owner can take to restructure and reinvent him or herself. One of my many happy clients said that I had no idea that liquidation can be so liberating. And it is so true, because it really gets rid of the problems and helps you to keep the core business so that you can continue with that. And that's exciting. It's nice to know that there is a legal solution to help you get rid of your problems. The most business owners that I talk to, by the time they phone me, they suffer from a lot of worries and fears. On the one hand, you've got SARS, which is probably the biggest worry for nearly every business owner that I talk to. And on the other hand, you've got your creditors and your landlord. Landlords are really a pain, and it's a big problem because basically a lot of time your livelihood depends on the landlord, doesn't it? Because if he kicks you out, you're out. Another problem with creditors is that the first thing they do if you don't pay them is they stop your credit, and now you have to buy cash. When you've already got slow cash flow, that exasperates the problem. The landlord has a retention right, so there's always a danger that he can issue a rental interdict summons and attach your assets. Then you cannot trade in any case. Your creditors start taking legal action. Your staff must get paid, and sometimes they go to the CCMA if you fall behind with your wages. Your rental agreement may need to be renewed, and your landlord does not want to renew it because you may be in arrears. You may have vehicles and machinery that you are renting or leasing, or that is under finance, and if you can't keep up, they come and collect those assets. So that is also a problem. And on the other hand, SARS, which is a creature on its own, most business owners that I talk to think that they are going to be locked up if they don't pay SARS. And then also we all know that SARS can debit your bank account, and people fear that SARS may take their business money, which you need for cash flow. And it often happens that SARS does. And also people worry that SARS may take them to court by taking legal action. So it's a fight that you fight to keep your business afloat when times are tough, when you've fallen in arrears with payments, when lockdown has had a devastating effect on most businesses. It's very tough to survive. And then it becomes a month-to-month story to stay afloat. And what do? What are the solutions that you start looking at when that situation occurs? Most people go and borrow more money. They start selling assets. They take out a bond on their house. They retrench staff. They go smaller. They try and compromise with SARS. They open a new bank account for fear that SARS may get hold of the old bank account. They even hide assets. They consider business rescue or go under business rescue. And then out of desperation, they make payment arrangement with creditors. It depends on whether they can hold to it, and most of the time they can't. So that's a lot of solutions to look at, and not one of them is good, because not one of them takes your problem away. Let's look at the borrowing money. Borrowing money, that's never a good idea because you increase the problem. Selling assets, well, in terms of the insolvency rules, you're not really allowed to do that. Plus, you are now making the business poorer. Bond your house is a disastrous step to take, and you should not even think about doing that. Retrenching staff, it depends on the business. Sometimes it's necessary. Compromise with SARS, never a good idea because SARS takes too long and they come back with unrealistic offers. I've often get it if you owe $1 million and they want it back in 3 months after they've taken a year to decide about it, and they charge interest and penalties to such an extent that by the time they get back to you, you owe $2 million. Opening a new bank account can work, but it can increase accountancy problems. Hide assets is not good because you need them. Business rescue, in my opinion, is a failure, especially in the slow economic times. Business rescue is meant to be a temporary problem, to solve a temporary problem. And at the moment, our problems are not temporary. It's a long-term recovery that we're looking at if we are going to recover. And payment arrangement with creditors also doesn't work, because if you have to borrow money to pay your creditors, then where are you going to find money to pay your creditors? So that is a big problem as well. But the one thing you must look at, and that you are looking at now because you are listening to my video, is that liquidation can rescue you. It's definitely the fastest route to the quickest solution, because you can keep on trading while you get rid of the problem. To me, liquidation is like a broom that sweeps the problems away, giving you a fresh start. All other method takes too long, are too expensive, and doesn't really solve your problem. It postpones the problem maybe, but it doesn't solve your problem. Not necessarily. If your problem is temporary, yes, but I don't believe that our problems at the moment are temporary. Liquidation is an excellent tool to use to restructure your business so that you can get rid of the problems and start fresh. Think about it. If you think about your business and you take the problems away, is it a viable business? If the answer is no, of course you should not continue to trade. But if it is, then you should definitely continue to trade. And I can help you to do that while we get rid of the other problem. Liquidation is definitely not the end. I'm very surprised to hear that people think it is. It does not close the business down forever. It closes an entity down forever, but not the business. You can continue with the business. It affords you with a fresh start because you suddenly have no more debt, unless you sign surety, but that's another discussion for another day. And if you can continue without the debt, your business can do much better, if not do brilliantly. And of course, then you can buy your assets back from the liquidator. And I'm now discussing fully paid assets. I will make another video to explain how you deal with assets in a liquidation so that you can go out unscathed. So how does liquidation actually work? What is the legalities about it? When there's a liquidation, the body of creditors come together and they call it a concursus creditorum, meaning that they picture the scene. Your company is standing there and there's this big box, throwing all assets into the big box. Your creditors come together and they stand around this big box, and a third party is appointed, that's the liquidator, to then sell this big box and divide the money amongst the creditors in a certain ranking order. If liquidation does not happen, the first creditor that issues legal action will be the one that takes the assets and sell it and take the money for him or herself, and there will be nothing left for the other creditors. So the beauty of a liquidation process is that there's more fairness in that everything stops. You can't be sued, they can't take legal action, you can't incur more debt, and everybody waits for the liquidator then to wind up the insolvent estate so that they can see how much they can get out of the business. Otherwise, they may all stand to lose. If you do not liquidate, the debt may incur to such an extent that nobody will get anything ever. The assets may be gone by the time you're done because you sell them, or you could want to sell them, or you could not pay them and they returned to the bank. So the good thing about a liquidation is that it stops the legal processes. It stops you from incurring more damage for your creditors. That's the main purpose of liquidation as well, is to stop the bleeding for both parties. So that's why it's one of the reasons why it is so important to liquidate sooner rather than later, and not even go for the other options that I've mentioned before, because the rest do not really solve the problem. And if you keep on trading while you borrow more money, while you sell assets, while you hide assets, and all those desperate steps that sometimes business owners take, it's to the detriment of yourself and of others. So a liquidation will write all the debt of the company incurred up to date of liquidation off, except if you signed personal surety. And of course, the other one that's not written off is taxes incurred under the Customs and Excise Act. That is not written off in a liquidation, because in terms of that act, the debt clings to the director, to the manager of the premises. Not so with the other taxes. So If no surety was signed, liquidation brings an end to the debt. The creditors cannot proceed. They must stop and they must write off the debt and partake in the winding up process, which I will explain just now. So how is a company liquidated? You can either go to the High Court or you can liquidate the company in the company's offices. High Court is an expensive process. It takes about 2 to 3 months, and the consequence is that when you get your final order, the company is liquidated. I personally only go to the High Court if there's a disagreement between directors, or if there's any other reason why we should rather liquidate in the High Court. Otherwise, it is much cheaper, faster. It takes about a week to liquidate a company in the company's offices. Same result, the company is liquidated. And once that has happened, the Master of the High Court appoints a liquidator who will then wind up the insolvent estate of the company. The consequences of liquidation is that the company is deregistered. It doesn't exist any longer. The director cannot act on behalf of the company any longer. So the moment that a resolution is signed to say that the company is going to be liquidated, the company cannot do business any longer. All debt incurred up to date of the liquidation form part of the liquidation. No legal action taken may be taken, and any action taken already must be suspended. A liquidator is appointed to wind up the insolvent estate. Assets are sold if there are any, and the proceeds divided amongst the creditors. After the winding up process is complete, the liquidation is complete, and that's the end of all the debt and the business itself. Now, the Companies Act actually compels you to liquidate as soon as the company cannot pay its debt. And if you do not, you can be regarded as trading recklessly, which means you can then be held personally liable for the debt of the company, even if you did not sign personal surety for it. So it's imperative that you rather liquidate before you do any of the other steps. The minute you cannot pay the debt of the company, liquidate. It arrests the problem there and then. You don't have to go through a year or two of sleepless nights and worry and fear. Stop and start over. I will help you how to do that. Get rid of the debt. Why do you want to trade and worry about it even longer? The sooner you get rid of it, the better.